Good afternoon, and welcome to today's edition of A Time Out. Today we're going to go over the third and final segment of the principles of the TPC principles that I shared with you the last couple of segments. For those of you who did not have the opportunity to go back and listen to the first two principles, talent and passion, I strongly encourage you to do that before you listen to this broadcast. But again, thank you for joining me, so let's jump right into it. The third and final principle is the word called, C-A-L-L-E-D. Now, you may be very familiar with that word. We hear it often all the time used in describing someone's pull or attraction to a specific area of vocational interest, a job. We hear it in religious setting when someone's called into ministry. And those are all the proper uses of the word called. But I came up with my own definition of the word called. And it is this: the physical or geographical location where you share your talents and gifts for the specific purpose God has assigned to you. Let me read that again if you're taking notes. I describe called not so much in being a vocation, but the physical or geographical location where you share your talents and gifts for the specific purpose God assigned to you. See, when you are following God's assignment, God's call in your life, you have to be open to go wherever He needs you. And that is where you will be effective in sharing your talents and gifts. It is also the place that will speak to your passions. Now, for those of you who did the assignment from week 2, when I asked you to write down your passions, both the good and those that you don't enjoy, you can pull that list out and review it. But the physical or geographical location that God will assign to you will speak to your passions, and it is there that you will have the greatest impact. I assure you, there are people right now waiting on you to come into their lives if you are not in that place right now. Now, I want you to keep in mind that we all have desires, and the place that you may go or desire to go might appear nice to you, might seem like a great place, but it may not align with God's will or the place that He will assign to you, that He wants you to be effective. Oftentimes, He'll assign you to a place that may not be that attractive. It may be an area filled with poverty, crime, racism, limited resources, and so on. But be encouraged, because the word in Jeremiah 17:7-8 reminds us that wherever we are planted, we are to bloom. So in other words, wherever God has assigned you, you do your best and you will blossom right there. See, I also believe that God will provide everything you need to be successful in spite of the physical or geographical location where you are. Matthew 5:14 and 16 reminds us that we are a light unto the world, and we ought to let others see our light. When you hear the word world, you automatically may think about globally, the large, big picture. However, keep this in mind. Your world may be in a less than desirable location than what you envision. The question for you, and I ask you to ponder, is this: what if God assigns you to a location that isn't that attractive? What if it's not the ideal place that you would like to go to, but that's where He needs you? Are you mature enough to accept that assignment and embrace that with all that you have in your body? See, I strongly encourage you not to tell God where you want to go, because that will limit your opportunities. Be open to wherever He needs you and wherever He assigns you. Be open. And then when you get to the place, I want you to remember this: wherever you are, your geographical assignment or physical assignment, it is only temporary. When it is time to go, you will know it. The hardest part about leaving is overcoming fear and hanging on to what you perceive as security. In other words, you want to go, you should go, but you can't because you're worried about, how am I going to get a paycheck? I need this check. So oftentimes we just settle in a place when it's way past the time for us to go. Now, that will be a decision between you and God. Don't let others force you or coerce you into leaving before it's time. Just because they think it's time for you to go does not mean it's actually time for you to leave. Listen to that inner voice in you. That's God speaking, you telling you when it's time to go. When you are operating in that fear, it will cause paralysis. You'll automatically think of all the reasons why it's not time to go. You know why? Because it takes faith, strength, and courage to walk into the unknown, especially if you have others depending on you, like your family, your wife, children. It takes a lot of faith to walk into the unknown. So we tend to stay in an area where we're not happy, but because we're content, we think that's security. It was the great Dr. Martin Luther King who said, "Faith is taking the first step without seeing the whole staircase." This happened to me. One time I was working at a youth center that I was very happy at, just starting to build the program, making an impact in the community, getting to know a lot of the kids and their families. And on the side, I was doing basketball clinics and things of that nature. So I sent one of my program packets to another community center in the city. Within a matter of weeks, I got a call from the director asking me to come in to talk about the program. Of course, I was excited about that because it was a program, it was a building, a facility that I had visited quite a few times when I was a young kid. So I get there and we're talking, and automatically during the conversation, the director says to me, "Hey, we just got rid of our director of youth program and recreation. Would you be interested?" Now, remind you, I came there just to talk about the program, and here was a wonderful opportunity that was presented to me. I struggled with the decision. Let me tell you why. I felt guilty about leaving the young people who I was working with at the current center. I felt like, man, if I leave them now, they're going to feel abandoned. I'm building something special there. Why would God put me in this position right now to make this tough decision? And it was during this time of decision that I sought the counsel of a wise pastor, a good friend of the family, on what I should do. And it was his words of comfort that changed my whole perspective. He shared with me that because of my faithfulness and diligence in doing a job well done, and because I was serving with humility, God was not taking me from the young people that I had built a relationship with currently at the current center. No, he had another assignment at a much larger facility for me where I could reach hundreds of youth and young adults from across the city. See, God was ready to enlarge my territory and increase my resources. And I don't know about you, but I serve a God that is in the business of increase. See, that's a case where an opportunity came out and I was ready to go wherever God needed me. Why? Because it was there that I would prosper. Sometimes God will show you your next assignment. Other times he won't. While I was at that community center, the new center, I was there for about 3 years. And while I was there working, I was also a part-time college basketball coach. I was an assistant women's basketball coach at a local university. And then for some strange reason, God placed another school that was in the same area or same city on my heart to stop following that team. I had no idea why. I never heard of the school before, to be quite frank with you. But I started to follow this team's record, see how they were doing during the season. I just wanted, for some reason, God had me just follow this team while I was coaching another team. And I can tell you this team was struggling. They were at the bottom of the conference, the perennial doormats of the league. And I would see their scores and I would just shake my head. And I wondered, why was God pointing me to look at this school? So the season finished. And at the end of the season, weeks later, I found out that the head coaching position at that school had opened up. And I know this firsthand. They received hundreds, if not thousands, of candidates who applied for the job. In fact, by the time I had applied, they'd already begun the interview process. So I sat back and said, okay, God, you were showing me this school for a reason. Maybe it's time for me to apply. So I sent in my materials, and long story short, I got the position. Despite applying late, God still favored me with giving me that position. And I can tell you that I took that program to heights never seen. We were no longer an easy win, and I was able to positively impact young adults from different racial, social, and economic backgrounds during my time there. And just as important, those young adults impacted my life and I stay in touch with many of them to this day. I want to pause right here for those listeners who believe in the power of prayer. This is a good time to remind you that when you pray and seek your next opportunity, it is okay to ask God for a specific assignment. Remember what I said, you're not telling him where you want to go, but you're asking that he places you in an area that aligns to the unique passions that are assigned to you. Let me say that again. You're not telling him where you want to go. You're just asking him to assign you to the area that he would want you to be, where you can be effective. So as I was at this new school, I had a good run there, stayed there for quite a few years. But then toward the tail end of my time there, I knew it was time to go. I could feel it in my spirit. It was time to go. You know, it's just one of those things. You just know. I had outgrown my assignment there, and the excitement and joy of arriving to work every day had faded, and I was no longer giving all of myself to the position. Of course, this was not fair to myself, my family, the institution, and above all else, it wasn't fair to those young adults who were looking to me for leadership and guidance. So I left the organization without a place to land. Didn't have a job to go to, I just left. And at first I enjoyed the free time of not being bound by schedules and meaningless tasks. And the days kept going, and the days turned into weeks. I still didn't have a place to go. Weeks turned into months, and I still didn't have a place to go. Now I want to say that during this time, I was receiving a couple of interviews, but I was operating in the realm of fear. I began to let fear creep in because I was worried about things like mortgage, bills, college tuition, all the normal things that come rushing in when you don't have your next assignment. And you're wondering about your income and how you're going to pay these bills. And to be honest with you, it was more of my anxiety than anything else, because at that point in time, I was okay financially that I could survive. But my mind went to the worst case scenario. And that happens to all of us. Our minds race from point A to Z without stopping in between to really look and account for what's really going on. We go to the worst case scenarios, and that fear just comes rushing in. Like I said, during that time period where I wasn't working, I did have a few interviews, a couple of places at some fine institutions where I was one of the finalists. Needless to say, I didn't get the job. Of course, I was disappointed. But then, as I said earlier, it's okay to ask God for a specific assignment. See, towards the end of my career at this position I was at, I had been asking God to open a new door for me. I had been praying for that. I said, God, I want to go back to a community where I can work with young people who don't have the confidence, and encourage them to let them know that there's a lot of resources in the world, and that the world is waiting on them, and that they can go to a school like the one that I was working at, which may have seemed out of reach for most of them. God answered my prayer, and he opened the door for me to land at that place that spoke to my specific passion, and the rest, as they say, is history. But while I was out of work, let me go back to this story. I had a couple interviews at some fine institutions I mentioned. One of them brought me and flew me out to their university twice. I was confident that that was where I was going to land. But in reality, it was the same type of institution that I had just grown tired of, but it's just in another state. So it looked like an opportunity, but it really wasn't an opportunity that I had prayed for. So looking back, I was glad that God didn't give me that opportunity, because it wasn't what I had prayed for, and it didn't reach the impact the young people that I wanted to touch. I also had the same encounter when I interviewed at another institution. I was one of the finalists, didn't get the job, disappointed like anybody else would be. But again, it appeared that that was the opportunity that I was looking for, because it was a Christian-based school. But the reality is, it was not the good fit. It was not a good fit for me. And it was not going to have me address and reach the young people that I had specifically asked God to allow me to reach again. I'm thankful for the opportunity that I have now. I will continue to serve with humility and faithfulness until it's time to move to the next physical and geographical area God has called me to. And I want you to, again, to come away from this last segment of being reminded, being called, I'm saying, is being called to a physical and geographical location. And you don't know where that's going to be. It's okay to ask for God for a specific assignment, but be open to go wherever he needs you. And keep in mind that wherever he needs you, it could be a nice, well-placed, well-resourced facility or state in the area or city or town, but oftentimes it may not be. And again, I ask the question, are you okay with it? Are you willing to walk into that light and through that door? Do you have the maturity to handle what may not look like a good opportunity, but it's the best place for you to be, because you will impact lots, if not hundreds or thousands of people who are there currently waiting for you to get your arrival. Well, that's it for today's Time Out. Be sure to join me next week. And I want to remind you that if you would like to get in contact with me, you can find me on many of the social media platforms. I'd love to hear from you on possible topics and how this broadcast is helping you. So until our next Time Out, be safe, give thanks, and look for opportunities to encourage and serve others. Now it's time to get back into the game. God bless.